Hi, Katie.
Hi, Pam. We were
Hello, world.
Hello, world. We were so well prepared up until the last 2 minutes. We were like, how do we do it? How do we get
Uh,
on?
we are excited to be here today talking about the state of the work world 2 years into the pandemic. Honestly,
Yeah.
when you think back to March of 2020, I remember having these conversations like, oh, this will probably be like a really rough 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook memories is a wonderful thing to remember. Like I specifically wrote like all where I was at that time. So it just popped up that it was 2 years ago and it feels like yesterday. It really does. Like it's been
I know.
a whirlwind of 2 years.
So much has
Yeah.
changed, and yet so much has
So
not.
much exactly. Exactly. That's why we're here.
So we're going to start with our normal question. Katie, what's making work awesome for you this week? And if you are joining in the chat, we are here from Blue Rebel Works. Our mission is to improve people's lives by making work awesome. And that is why we are asking you, whenever we get together, what's making work awesome for you this week? So, Katie, you tell me, what's making work awesome for you?
Yesterday, I needed to take like a little bit of a mental health break from work, and so it was nice that I was able to do that in the middle of my day. I found that I was sitting in front of the computer and I was like, ugh. It was like really foggy yesterday. I don't know if it was where you were. It was like just a kind of scary, weird, depressing day. And then I sat
It
at
was
the
a
computer.
Silent Hill day.
It was a Silent Hill day. That's exactly what my child wrote to me this morning.
That's what I was like out for my walk with the dog in the morning yesterday. And I took a little video and I was like, I totally feel like some really creepy nurse is going to come after me right now because I'm in Silent Hill.
Yeah.
It's totally scary.
It was a weird, depressing day. And when I sat at the computer, I was like, I'm not in the mental frame of mind to like sit and concentrate on anything right now. I hadn't been out of the house for a couple days. So I realized, so I was like, I need to get out of the house. So I went to the store.
Yeah.
And so that's what made work awesome. And then I could come back and like my head was clear and I was able to like actually concentrate and like to be able to step away when you know that you're not in a frame of mind to get anything done. That's what I love about work right now. Like I can't get over it.
I'm curious, if you're here right now, I would love to hear from you. Do you have that flexibility that if you are struggling, like we all have these times when no matter our best intentions to be productive, your brain is just not in the state that you can do that on a day. And quite honestly, like I find the more things going on in the world, whether it's racial injustice or war in Ukraine or like so many things, my brain is overloaded sometimes. And there are days that I am less productive, and that ability to just get outside, take some deep breaths of fresh air and like come back when I'm in a better mental state. It's such a waste of time to be sitting at your computer when you're not.
And I was trying to get through it too. I was like in my head, I'm like, no, this is stupid. You're fine. Everything's good. And then like tears were welling up. And so I'm like, I can't even see the computer screen. And I'm like, what am I doing? Just go. Just get up and walk away and get out of here. And yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so happy that you're able to do that.
I had to. Yeah.
And I hope for anyone here that you do feel like you have that kind of flexibility, because I'm hoping, and we are going to be, our whole topic today is about state of work world and how pandemic has changed work. And I'm hoping that that's one of the positive effects, is that we all have more flexibility in our days. What's making work awesome for me this week is we had a little bit of a strat session talking about we're a little bit of a 5-hour to talk about strategy and how we can help more people. And I'm super excited about the program that we will be launching in May. So I'm not going to say anything about it right now, but I'm excited.
The wheels are in motion, which is nice. It was when it goes from thought to actual motion, that's the thing that I get excited about.
Yeah. So that is making work awesome for me this week. So if you are here with us live or in the comments later, in the replay. Let us know what's making work awesome for you this week. We today are talking about the state of the work world 2 years after the pandemic. And so one of the things that we did in 2020 when the pandemic hit is we wanted to serve our community in the best way that we could. So we surveyed everyone to find out what was going on. And we got a lot of information about how COVID had disrupted work and what was extremely stressful or challenging and what some of the positive effects were. So even though it's 2 years later, we were looking at that the other day and going like, a lot of this is still
very relevant. Very relevant.
So we thought we would share some of that, some of what we found, and ask you about what the current state is. Let me just take our question out. So first, I'll just share the kind of the high level. What we found was that there were really 3 strategic imperatives coming as this was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. We surveyed people over the summer of 2020 and launched the report in August, I think. Mm-hmm. The 3 high-level imperatives were: don't return to work, reinvent it. So there was a lot of talk already. And it's so funny because this was in the summer of 2020. People were talking about returning to the office. And we were saying like, no, like, don't just go back to the way you used to do things. We need to reinvent the way we think about work. And it turns out that return to the office was very short-lived because we're only now seeing some companies starting to go back. And like, honestly, we would recommend you don't force any of that. We're going to get into it a little bit, but what do you think? What do you think about reinventing work instead of just returning to the workplace or the office? Let us know. That's number 1 in our strategic imperatives. Number 2 was how important having an agile culture is. And by agile, I don't necessarily mean like tech agile with like sprints and stand-ups and all of the like agile kind of implementation. What I mean is a culture that is constantly like adjusting, iterating, trying new things, and able to make change happen quickly. So we found in our survey that those companies that were used to making disruptive changes happen often, when the pandemic hit, they were actually far further ahead at like adjusting, making a change, moving people around, all of that stuff. So we would say disruption is not going to stop. It is going to continue. There is going to be uncertainty there. We're seeing there's so much going on in the world every day. So having that agile culture is so important. Let us know what you think. And I'd love to even hear like, how agile is your culture after going through the pandemic? Is it more agile now? Like what are your thoughts on that? And then the 3rd strategic imperative is about humanizing leadership. This is like, my heart lies here. This is so important. And I know, when I first became a manager, I was taught to like leave my baggage at the door and kind of like have no emotions and just be kind of this robotic manager. And the more I led people, the more I found that just didn't work for me, and I don't think worked for them. And the more research we've done, the more we've trained leaders and developed leaders and worked with companies to improve culture, the more important we've found that human side, compassionate leadership, all of that is just so important, and more so now. So those were the 3 strategic imperatives back in 2020 that we found.
Still today.
Still relevant, right? I think so. So we would love to hear what you think. Relevant, yes, no, which one's your favorite? And we're going to share some of the other findings from our report and ask you about the current state. Right? Is that our agenda? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So I love that you just like found the report too, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I did
Oh yeah, I
this."
forgot I did this whole 30-page report about the pandemic, and it
I'm
actually
scrolling through it, and I'm like, "This is today. This is more relevant than ever." Like, it's
yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, and I mean, speaking of that, so back in 2013, those of you who have been a part of some of the conferences, the reInvent Work Summit and Impact 99 will remember this possibly. I co-authored something called the Blueprint for Workplace Reinvention. And what we found, we did a ton of research and interviews with all these different leaders, and we found that there were two core elements of a reinvented workplace, is what we called it then. And it was organizational trust and organizational agility. And that was in 2013. And so
That's so long ago.
I know. And within each of those were all the things we're talking about now. So like to build organizational trust, we needed to be aligned strategically. We needed authentic humanity to connect with people and really build that relational trust. We needed individual accountability, which is like freedom and accountability to do what you need to get done. And we needed operational transparency. Like those four things are so crucial, especially when we're remote or hybrid or whatever we want to call it nowadays.
Yeah.
And then on the agility side, it was all about digital fluency, communicating, connecting, collaborating with technology. Super important when the pandemic hits and sends everyone to work from home. We also said relentless innovation, iterating, trying, making it safe for people to take risks really is a lot of the psychological safety that we know is so important. And I can't remember the 7 that ladders up to agility. But if you want the Blueprint for Workplace Reinvention, it is actually a 100-page like ebook or physical book. You can order it. We'll stick a link in the comments later. Hi, Charla. All 3 bubble to the top. They're all interrelated. Yeah, totally agree. I'm just going to pop them up again in case someone's skipping through this. So 3 strategic imperatives. Don't return to the workplace, reinvent it. Agile culture is a strategic advantage, and we need to humanize leadership even more in a virtual world. So thank you, Charla. We would agree. Those are all 3 still super important. So as we look back at that pandemic work report, by the way, we'll stick a link in the chat or in the comments later for you to sign up to get the whole report. It's 30 pages long, has tips and tricks and all the data in there. But for now, we're just going to give you the high level. We asked, how has COVID-19 disrupted work for you? And Katie, what were the top 5 answers?
Disruption?
Yeah,
what you're asking
disruption.
me?
How did COVID-19 disrupt work? This is in 2020.
This is 2020. So having to use new tech tools,
right?
Or using tech in new ways, having more work meetings, working from home for the very first time, which again seems like such a blur. Leading a team remotely.
Yeah.
And then more work hours. So like not going somewhere gives you the ability to work all the time.
Like
I know. 9 to 5, bum and seat.
Yeah, it can be hard to not fall into that trap. I'd love to hear. So using tech in new ways, like I think everyone has realized the power of video calls versus like a conference call or like just email to communicate. So hopefully video calls are being used. We use Zoom most of all, but we have been trying out some different technologies, and there are so many innovative ways to use video in a platform that makes it feel way more kind of organic. So I'm just going to throw out a couple that we've been playing around with, which are, was it around?
Around, yeah.
I think it's like around.me, like it's not a .com, but around. And that's cool because you have these different environments. You can like be all in a circle on the call. You can have different backgrounds and like music playing or different things. It just makes a very different environment. It makes it,
Yeah.
it can feel more like what your team would want.
And I had asked you, how did we even discover that one?
Yeah, that was from the folks at Murmur.
Oh, right.
So shout out to the folks at Murmur. We are in their beta test. We'll maybe talk about that at another live. But yeah, shout out to Murmur. Aaron Dignan and his team. He is also the author of Brave New Work, which is one of my favorite books, and co-podcaster of Brave New Work podcast. Shout out to them for all the great work that they do. So yeah, Around.me was one, and then the other one was oh my god, Wonder.me.
Yeah. And we stayed in Wonder for some time, and we even got extra computers to see how it's one thing when it's 2 people, but it's different when it's a whole group of people. So and again, we logged in, and it was cool.
Some super cool opportunities to use something like Wonder instead of Zoom to actually, you don't have to be in a call with somebody, but you can drag yourself. If I see, it's cool because everyone is their own little bubble on Wonder, and you can just drag your own bubble up to someone else's bubble and start a conversation with them. It opens up a little video screen, and you can have your little kind of Zoom-ish call in Wonder, but you don't have to. You can drag your icon away from them and be so like,
chase you around the screen.
Yeah, to me it kind of simulates, and you can set up rooms in it. So I imagine if we were a larger operation, we might set up like some like meeting rooms within there and some like spaces that people could just drag themselves into, to have conversations or coffee chats, or you can just like walk by someone else's desk by dragging your icon. So there are some really cool ways to use technology in new ways. I would love to hear. So if you're here, the first question is, what's disrupting work for you today? And as we're talking about what people said in 2020, the first one was tech in new ways. What kind of technology have you been using that has been really awesome to help you get work done that you didn't use before the pandemic? Let us know what tech is helping you in new ways.
Which is the opposite of disrupting.
Yes. Well, disrupting, but in a positive way.
Yes, in a positive way. Yes,
disruption could be positive, right?
Yes.
It might feel uncomfortable when it's happening, but like it can turn good. More work meetings. Is that still happening? Do we still feel like we're in like back-to-back Zooms or team meetings? Let us know what is helping you get out of that cycle, because we are hearing that a lot. People are in too many meetings. We have a few suggestions around that. Like, first of all, just question whether it needs to be a meeting. Use your different software. We talk about digital fluency a lot, which we'll talk about in a minute too, but having different technology to use for different things so that everything doesn't have to be a meeting. And the other thing that we've seen a lot of people do is they try to end their meetings 10 minutes early, and some have gotten better at that, but I actually would recommend starting your meetings 10 minutes late, because that usually will give you the 10-minute little break. Working from home for the first time, have you gotten used to it?
Definitely.
Yes.
And now I can't think of ever going back to being in an office. And it's very strange. So if you're here with us today, what is disrupting work for you? I'm just seeing, let's see. We are a Microsoft shop, Teams and Whiteboard. Yeah, definitely. That one of the small things that you can do, especially if you're meeting virtually using Teams, or whether it's Teams, Google Meet, or Zoom, or Wonder, or whatever you're using, is to always use the digital whiteboard. If you're in a hybrid meeting, do not get pulled into using the like actual whiteboard in that room that you might be in live. Use something digital so everyone can see everything that's being done. Always like default to shared everything so that everything's really transparent. So yes, Microsoft Teams and Whiteboard might be your go-to. There's tons of technology out there. In our 5-hour strat, we were using what did we use?
We used mural board
Mural
and
board.
Jamboard.
And Jamboard.
Yes. we used them
Post-its
both.
were flying. It was great.
Yes, we love virtual Post-its.
We do. It gives you like a little bit of a fun anticipation too. You're like, what are they saying?
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
What?
I can see
Speak
it.
on that more. I can see what you're typing. Give me more details on that. So
It's like the 3 dots in a text message.
exactly. Here comes.
Physical. I love it. Yes, blasphemy. Blasphemy, darn it. No physical whiteboards for us. Okay.
Although having a physical whiteboard in our own offices, you've even said, I need to make a pretty whiteboard, or I need to make like a pretty board.
Yeah.
Those are great. Like I can look up and see stuff that's going on while I'm on with you.
Yes. For your personal stuff. Yeah, I totally agree. And I like things to look pretty. So I like, you've seen my like bright pink colored like chart to like track.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I like to have the physical piece where I can actually write my stuff down and see it physically in front of me as a reminder all the time. Could be as simple as a Post-it note sticking on my computer, which I also have. Okay, that was what's disrupting work for you. So what is currently really disruptive for you? Let us know, what are you finding? What is disrupting work today? And our next question on our survey was about stress and concern, like what was causing the most stress or extra concern for people? In 2020, what was the number one answer?
Feeling disconnected from coworkers.
Feeling disconnected from coworkers. So
yeah,
honestly, I'm still hearing that a lot.
I know.
And I get that it's not as organic and natural to build connection through a screen, but I really, really challenge the opinion that you can't.
Yeah.
Because like, honestly, Katie, we've met 4 times in person, maybe
3, maybe
3.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like we have a pretty good relationship.
We're very connected, but we're intentional about it. Like we not just when we have our meeting scheduled, and we talk about this all the time. I feel like sometimes I repeat myself. But we make time when we have a scheduled meeting, but then we'll also make time just outside of those meetings to just be like, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling?
Yeah. Lots going on in the world, checking on your team, like just little things like that make a difference. So feeling disconnected from coworkers, do you still feel that way? Let us know. Is that still a challenge, the disconnection from your coworkers? That was the number one challenge that people were having in 2020. Number 2,
adapting to a different schedule.
Adapting.
Routine,
people were struggling with not having that routine of like, I go into the office and I work for 8 hours and that is my work day. Instead, I'm like waking up in my home and like adapting to this schedule and not having your regular routine. So,
which is funny because everything that we talk about is like not being in a routine. Like you don't have to go sit at a desk at 9 o'clock in the morning with your coffee and work. 12 o'clock. Okay, now I can go take my lunch. Like that. So it is funny to hear people talk about lack of routine and like being a stressor and being a challenge. Because when you say lack of routine should be the norm.
Right. Well, or just creating your own routine. And I think people for so long, and this goes back to like, we operate as a results only work environment, and are huge advocates of models like that. It kind of is related to the whole, people were used to like, I get paid to work for 8 hours. And when that kind of 9 to 5 or like whatever that was for you is thrown out, you actually just have to like get work done, and that's what you get paid for. It's like a change in like thinking. And like people were used to that routine of like, I know when I go in, like I drive to work and then I'm working, and I drive home from work and I'm not working. And when I'm not having that separation, it's hard. It, like for a lot of people, it was hard.
Yeah.
And
And probably still is.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I like it took me a while to figure out I do have a pretty much a routine, other than the times when I'm feeling like I'm not getting stuff done. I'll get up and take a walk or whatever, but like I generally get up at the same time every day. I do sit down, like I have my Wordle Portal
Yes.
crossword kind of morning before I start work. I take the dog out. Like I have certain things that I do as a routine, but I've created my own routine. Like when I used to have to commute for 90 minutes every day each way, my routine was very different, and it was not mine. It was not my choice. Now it's my choice of routine. So what's happening for you now? Are you adapted? Do you have a routine? Is it static, or do you change it up? Like what does that look like for you? Is that still a concern or a challenge?
Yeah.
The third concern or most challenging, stressful part back in 2020 was what, Katie?
Taking care of personal and family needs while working. This whole
Yes.
idea of like you need to lock yourself in a room and nobody's allowed to, interrupt, and if your dog's barking in the background, that's a bad thing. And I believe that we're past that now after 2 years. Like I really think that certainly with everybody that we talk to on a regular basis, it's like, we want your microphones on during our meetings. We don't care if your kids walk in. If your dog comes to visit, your cat walks across your keyboard. It gives some levity to the meetings too, right? And this is the world that we work in now. So I really think I don't think that would be the third thing on the list anymore if we were to resurvey. I don't think that that's so much of a challenge now. I hope.
And I think for most of us, kids have gone back to school, so you don't have them trying to homeschool them all day. I think that was super challenging for people in 2020. And I do
and juggle.
What's that?
And the juggle of having to like take care of your kids while they're doing school and you still work. And
so that was super hard. And now like kids come home from school probably while you're still working, and so that's where that hopefully when they come home they don't feel like, oh, I can't interrupt mom because she's on a call. Like like I'm hoping that most of our workplaces have grown accustomed or like welcomed the fact that your family is just a part of your life. So then we also heard about changing workloads, even concerns of risk of exposure to the virus, some other things like that. There was also fear of losing jobs, like all kinds of concerns. So now, 2 years into the pandemic, what is most stressful or challenging for you? Let us know in the comments. We would love to hear what is happening for you.
We had almost 25% of the people say this feeling that I'm not contributing enough. And that's something that I am constantly struggling with, because like, if you get your work done, then your work's done. Should I be doing more? Do I have to add more? Am I like, it's kind of, that's a one that I would say I think about all the time too. This thought of, I should be doing more.
Yeah, I didn't work 8 hours.
Didn't work 8 hours today. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, no. So I will say in our environment, no, if your work is done, like certainly you might have an idea that could add value. And like now that we're testing out Murmur, it might be a great way to like propose a new project or something that could add value to the business. That's what Murmur helps with. Anyone on the team, it's built for self-managed organizations so that the leader at the top isn't like dictating everything that happens. Anyone can propose something that the company will do. So like that could be one opportunity like in our environment, but also like, no, it isn't like you have to work a certain number of hours, and like that's ridiculous in any environment, in my opinion.
And it's funny because I think about like past jobs where I was in a actual physical environment, and don't think I ever felt that. Like I don't because your bum was there because somebody was watching you the entire time that you were in the office.
And
Somebody
work
was
expands to fill the time allotted.
It sure does.
That is Parkinson's law.
Yes.
Work expands to fill the time allotted. So if you know that you have to work for 8 hours, your 5 hours of work will take you 8 hours.
Yes.
Right? Like if you know that you have to leave on vacation tomorrow, then your 40 hours of work for the week will somehow take you only 32.5 because you need to leave. Like work expands to fill the time allotted. So for us, it's like, what are we responsible for? What's going to serve our clients best? What do we need to do? Get that done. And then like take the dog out.
Yeah.
Or if you have a great idea, sure. Like let's
share it. Absolutely.
So what is most stressful or challenging today? 2 years ago, you said feeling disconnected from coworkers, adapting to a different schedule or having no routine, taking care of personal and family needs while working. Those were the top 3. What is most stressful or challenging today? And then our third question that we're going to share with you today was, what has been a positive effect of the pandemic? So back in 2020, when we surveyed people, what did they say? What were the top answers?
No commute.
Yeah.
Flexibility of work time and able to schedule work around my life.
Yeah.
Which is what you've been saying since 2013.
Well, yeah, since 20, like before that, but like
before that
book in 2013. No commute. Like I personally came from an environment where I commuted without traffic. It was an hour commute, but it's in Toronto, like driving through Toronto. So there were days that it would take me 2.5 hours to get to work.
Yeah.
I used to stay at work until at least 7:30 so that I wouldn't have to drive through traffic to get home. So my work days were generally, I would get there around 8:30 and stay until 7:30. So I would be away from my home for like, I don't even know, do
your
the
entire life.
Like, I pretty much just slept at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can totally relate to the no commute, and I have never missed it.
Yeah.
So what has been a positive effect of the pandemic for you? Like, and what is happening now that's positive? Like I never want to go through a pandemic again, but there were definitely some positive changes that happened in the work world. And so we would love to hear from you what has been a positive effect. And Charla is saying definitely no commute. Huge time and cost saving.
Saving, yes.
Oh my gosh, especially with the price of gas right now. And I'm looking at these companies that are truly like thinking they're going to mandate everyone come back to the office every day. And I'm like, not only are you not trusting your people, they've been productive over the past 2 years, actually getting stuff done. Many companies have been more productive than they ever have before, and they're still mandating people come back. So not only are you going to probably hurt productivity, you're going to kill engagement. You're going to probably fall prey to the Great Resignation, and you're going to cause people to be paying like 4 times as much in gas because gas prices are going so crazy. It is the most ludicrous idea. It is blasphemy in Charlotte's
It's blasphemy.
Telling people, mandating people to come to work at a certain time every day, unless that is the only way they can get their work done, just makes no sense at all.
Yeah. And that's not to say that people can't go back to work if they want to. There are people out there that, do still feel disconnected and want that in person. But that's, again, where we challenge why is there still a disconnect and why do you not?
Yeah, totally agree. Charla is laughing at my blasphemy comment. Okay. So what has been most positive coming out of the pandemic for you? Let us know if you are here in the comments, what's been a positive effect of the pandemic. Now, next week, we are having a live, not live like this, but a collaborative workshop, a 90-minute workshop that will be truly just a facilitated conversation with peers to talk about what is really challenging right now? What are you doing to combat things like the Great Resignation, to support people from like a mental health and well-being perspective, to make sure that you're balancing that plus getting great work done? Like, what's really challenging for you, and what are you doing that's helping, so that we can have a peer conversation about that. But we are, for now, going to also share the 5 key insights and some tips that we sort of came up with in 2020 in our report. So the first one was, the future is flexible. So we do not believe that most workplaces need to have like a place that you go every day to get your work done, unless that is your job, like you're an essential worker that goes to a grocery store every day to serve your customers. Although in that case, your schedule is flexible as well. I actually come from I worked in the grocery industry for a while, and we had a very interesting way that we worked with one of our stores to create a flexible schedule where the team could create their schedule. So ask me about that sometime. I'm not going to get into it in detail, but the future can be flexible even in essential work environments. You can help people to take more autonomy over their time. There are ways to do that, and I have done it. And that is going to help you combat the Great Resignation no matter what, because people like control over their own stuff. So future is flexible. This means we have to make remote work. It can't be like you must come back to the office 9 to 5 every day. And we need to break Parkinson's law. And that is the law that states that work expands to fill the time allotted. That is, really stepping away from work being measured by time, and thinking about work as work being work, like work being measured by the work that you get done. And we're just popping the collaboratory link in the comments. I'm just showing it here, but you can grab it from the comments. Thank you, Katie, for sharing that. So the future is flexible. Would love to hear anything that you're thinking about that's helping you make that flexible work work. What does flexibility look like in your environment now? Our second key insight and some tips: emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is essential, and it is not always the automatic kind of natural approach for all leaders, but it can be. You can develop some of these skills. So emotional literacy is one of these skills that, it is a tactical practice of being able to name emotions, getting comfortable with like speaking emotion language. And the practice of actually naming and labeling emotions helps to dampen your amygdala. We can go into a whole emotional intelligence right now, but like actually talking about how people are feeling can help you build some of that emotional intelligence. And then developing compassionate leaders. Kate, you were talking about kids coming in and interrupting a meeting or whatever. And I was talking to a leader last week about the difference between a compassionate leader and a non-compassionate leader. And so if you were a non-compassionate leader, the kid comes in and like wants to say hi to mommy at the end of school, or is climbing all over daddy when they get home from school, whatever it is. And the non-compassionate leader, like maybe pauses and then says, okay, can we get back to what we were talking about? Yeah. The compassionate
or leader ignores it altogether.
Yeah, or ignores it. Yeah. Like keeps on going, just completely does not recognize your family. A compassionate leader would say, oh, like, who's that? Hi, everyone say hi. How is school? Do you need a minute to like let your kids settle in? Like empathy, like what is that person going through right now to deal with what's happening, and how can we be more human? So human, compassionate, whatever you want to call it, but so important. The third finding, insight and tips: communication and meeting practice have to adapt. We don't, You don't have the time to walk from a meeting room to a meeting room. So you don't even have that break anymore. So we have to be intentional about how we're meeting, why we're meeting, be intentional about what we're communicating, how we're communicating. We use the term digital fluency a lot in our world, which is the ability to connect, collaborate, and communicate using technology really effectively. And we have some ways of helping to do that with like being clear about what technology do you use for what communication. That stuff is super, super important in a digital, remote, hybrid, whatever it is world.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm just like going for it. I'm going through
all
these,
we've only got a few minutes left.
I know. I'm like, okay, number 4, trust is the currency of remote work. And I would actually say trust is the currency of high performance, no matter what kind of work. But in a remote world, it becomes even more essential. If you are monitoring the time that your people are like logged into Teams or that sort of like, really, you need to stop. If you are not having like trust building conversations in your one-to-ones and like having a time to connect and build trust relationship wise, then you're missing out on the opportunity to connect virtually. When you were in the office, just because you ran into people at the water cooler or the coffee machine, it did not mean that you were better at collaborating or had better relationships. I like, honestly, because you went like, hey, how's your day going? And the other person said, oh, pretty good. How about you? Good. And then you both walked to your offices and did your work. That was not a connection. And that was not trust building. Like, you can build trust virtually far more effectively. You just have to be intentional about it. And then psychological safety. We have a collaboratory coming up about psychological safety in the near couple of months. I can't remember what day, but watch for it. But that is all about developing kind of team trust, where your team trusts, everyone on the team feels like they can speak up and challenge each other and share opinions and take risks without judgment or detriment to them. So that is so important in all environments, but especially remotely. And then our 5th and final insight we are sharing from our pandemic work report, which we will share a link that you can download the full 30 pages, is crisis doesn't hurt your culture, it amplifies it. So we all went through this pandemic crisis. And what we found was those organizations that had low levels of trust or low levels of emotional intelligence, they really struggled. And those organizations that already had an agile culture and already had high levels of trust and already were, had these human leaders that cared about people and practiced relationship building, that was part of their culture. Guess what? They thrived.
They did good.
Yeah. So if you haven't started, get intentional about your culture now. Think about what you are doing every day to build the kind of culture that you want, and how it's showing up in your actions and behaviors.
That's what I was going to say. It has to be through actions too. You can say that you have a really like good work culture, and if it's not seen through your actions, then it's just words. It's just
exactly
those thinking about the values of a business, and like where you go to their website and you see all their values, and then the employees are like, no, that's not shown in the work world.
Yeah, totally. I have the most engaged culture that I ever worked at. And Katie, actually, you and I worked at the same company. This is like going back 20 some years. They had no values written down. There was no like values hanging on a wall. There was nothing like that at that company, but everyone knew what the culture was like. It was super entrepreneurial. It was super customer service focused. It was really team focused and collaborative. Like you could never
thinking and
innovative, growing. Like it was clear what the culture was because of everything the leaders and everyone in the company were doing every day. And then I have personally worked in companies that had like beautifully designed values hanging on the wall, even
Mhm.
beautifully designed offices with open office and like the highest tech kind of stuff that
Yes.
had horrid cultures that did not match the values at all, and that I felt like I was losing my soul every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's those companies where like when you join, you're drinking their Kool-Aid and you're like, yes, this is, and then as you get deeper into it, you're like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, that was a really nice costume it was wearing. And
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I'm just seeing, yes, couldn't agree more, Charlotte. It also needs to be demonstrated by leadership. Yeah, it is an exponentially greater impact the higher you get up in influence or hierarchy if you're a hierarchical organization. So the more influence you have, the more your actions and behaviors and habits have an impact on the culture. And that goes for all of these pieces. If you want to build psychological safety, you want people to speak up and feel like they can share openly, then as a leader, I actually have to hold back so that other people can speak up first. I don't want to sway them with my thoughts. I want to hear their thoughts, right? Everything you do as a leader has to be more intentional, especially in a remote hybrid world or in stressful times. Oh, so we have recapped a lot of the top level key findings from our pandemic work report that was done in 2020. We think the findings are still pretty applicable. I'm going to pop those 3 strategic imperatives back up on the screen again. Let us know what you think. Let us know what's most challenging now, what you're looking at as you're thinking about what the future in your organization looks like. Are you getting people to come back to the office? Are you reinventing the way you're working? Are you being more intentional about that agile culture? Are you thinking about how human and compassionate your leaders are? Let us know what your focus is, what you're doing, and join us next Friday, March the 25th. At 8:30 Eastern time. We will be live on Zoom. That will be an interactive discussion, collaborative discussion with peers, just facilitated by us to find out what you're doing, what you're challenged with, and see what we can learn from each other. Wow. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will be live next week again. And thank you for joining us, and either in live or in the comments, share your thoughts, and we will hopefully see you next week, either here or in our collaboratory Zoom call.
Absolutely.
Have a great